Good morning. The lesson for today is going to continue with what we've been doing with fractions and multiplication. And we're still going to be looking at the distributive property and the multiplication of fractions. On your desk, you need your math notebook. You are going to be taking notes on some of the techniques we're going to be using today and also for tomorrow. And the examples that you record, that you write down, are going to help you when you need to make sense out of this and working on some examples either on your own or in a small group. So notebooks on your desk right now. You need a pencil or something to be able to write with. So make sure you have that out as well. And here we go. So today we're going to be building on the area model to include the distributive property when multiplying whole numbers and fractions and whole numbers and mixed numbers. We did a little bit of this on Friday, and we're going to continue a little bit more today. Why are we learning this? Well, we've said since we started fractions that fractions are an important life skill, and they are. You're going to use fractions either in the form of decimals, percents, or an actual fraction with just about everything that you do. So the more comfortable you can feel with fractions, the easier those tasks are going to be. And how will you know we've learned it? Well, you will be able to combine and use the area model and the distributive property to make the calculations of fractions and whole numbers easier. So let's get started with the first task that I'm going to have you do. I want you to write down this example, 35 times 46, and I want you to set up the area model. Now you'll also draw your horizontal line and your vertical line inside of the rectangle so that you can then multiply and continue with your work. So pause the video here for 1 minute and then we'll check in and see how you did. Okay, so I've got 46 and I broke that into 40 plus 6. 35 and I broke that into 30 plus 5. So when I multiply 30 times 40, again, just ignore the zeros. 3 times 4 is 12. There are 2 zeros, so you're going to write 2 more zeros after the 12. 30 times 6, well, again, forget about the 0. 3 times 6 is 18. You have 1 0 in the 30. You're going to write 1 0 after the 18. 5 times 4 is 20, and you're going to write 1 more 0 after the 20 for this 0 in the 40. And 5 times 6 is 30. Now you're going to add all of these numbers up. And some of you, if you were really paying attention, you would have seen me cover this up. When I started talking, I did not realize that I still had it open. So some of you got a sneak preview. But the answer is 1,610. Okay? So now, in your notes, I want you to write down this multiplication example and this multiplication example. Don't start panicking when you see all of these brackets and parentheses and oh my God, this is just horrible. Just relax. Write it down and I want you to draw the area model, just like you see here. Across the top, you have 20 plus 6, and on the left side, you have 5. On the second example, you have again your rectangular box that you've set up. You've divided it once into 2 sections, and now you've got 3 on the left, 2 plus 1/2 for your 2 and 1/2. Okay, don't worry about all the rest of this. We're going to do this as we start making sense out of what you have. So you're just drawing the 2 rectangular boxes, setting them up for the area model, and writing down your 2 examples. Okay, we're going to give you 2 minutes to get all that set up. And pause the video here for 2 minutes, and then you'll check back in after that. Okay, so we're back again. Now, this is pretty straightforward. This is just whole numbers. That's just like the one that we did just a moment ago. So 5 times 20 is 100. 5 times 6 is 30. So under this, I'm going to write 5 times 20, which is what we did here. 5 times 20 plus 5 times 6, which is what we did here. 5 times 20, that's 100. 5 times 6, that's 30. 100 plus 30 is 130. So we have the area model, and we're showing the distributive property. So this is area model. This is the distributive property, showing how you're multiplying and how you're distributing the 5 to both the 20 and the 6. And then you've got your answer. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to finish catching up in case you didn't get all of this written down. And then we'll take a look at this other side. Okay, so now you already have this box, the area model written down, and you have your 3 that's going to be distributed to the 2 and 1/2. So again, looking at this side, 3 times 2 and 1/2. That's the same thing that we have here, 3 times 2 and 1/2. Now it's just separated out, so we have the whole number and the fraction. And we're going to do the same thing. 3 times 2, that's 6. 3 times 1/2, that's 3/2. 3 times 1 is 3. And when you're multiplying a whole number by a fraction, remember you're going to write a 1 under the whole number. So you would have 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. And that's where you get the 3/2 from. Okay, so now we're distributing 3 times 2 and 3 times, well, that should be 3 times 1/2. Make that a 1. 3 times 1/2. 3/2 is your answer. Okay, there. 3 times 1/2. And 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1/2, that's your 3/2. Adding it all together, you get 7 and 1/2. Remember, in this 3/2, you can get 2 will go into 3 one time, and there's going to be a remainder of 1. And 6 plus 1/2, 7 and 1/2. Okay, now describe how the distributive property is used in the 2 problems above. Turn to your partner and have a quick discussion. How does this show the distributive property? Take a look at your examples here that show the distributive property, and look at your multiplication and the area model and what happened. How is the distribution going on, and what does that look like? So take about 2 minutes, discuss how the property is being used, and write your answer on the line below. Okay, pause here for 2 minutes and then check back in. Okay, so the numbers are broken apart into place value. That's clearly seen with 26. Can also look at it with the whole number and the fraction. And that made multiplication much easier. Okay, it's easier to add 130 to get 130 than to try and multiply 5 times 26 in your head. Okay, it's easier to think about 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 1/2 is 3/2, and then be able to get 7 and 1/2, rather than trying to figure out how you're going to multiply the mixed number. So the distributive property makes that much easier to do. Okay, so here we go. Use the distributive property in area models to multiply the following examples. Set your area model up for 7 times 2 and 1/2 and 1 and 1/8 times 6. And go ahead and multiply it, get your answers. I'm going to have you take 5 minutes for this. You may need to think about this a little bit. If it seems that you're done sooner than 5 minutes, then Ms. Gurley will go ahead and continue or start the video sooner, and then we'll continue taking a look at the answers. But take about 5 minutes to draw both of these sets down and then actually start working it out and come up with your answers. Stop the video here and begin. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look at 7 and times 2 1/2. And 7 times 2, well, that's 14. 7 times 1/2, that's 7 halves. 7 times 1 is 7. 1 times 2 is 2. Well, in 7 halves, I can fit 3 2s. 2 times 3 is 6. So that's going to be 3 with 1 left over. 3 1/2 would be changing that improper fraction back to a mixed number. And when I add this up, 14 7 halves, or 14 3 1/2, I get 17 1/2. So hopefully you get the same thing on yours. Now we're going to take a look at our other one. And 6 times 1 is 6. And 6 times 1/8 is 6/8. Notice this time I did not get an improper fraction. 6 times 1 is 6. 1 times 8 is 8. I have 6/8. However, I can reduce 6/8. And I can use 2 to reduce 6/8. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 8 4 times. So 3/4 would be lowest terms. And let's see if that's what our answer shows. 6 plus 6/8, or 6 3/4. Sure enough. Okay, so now we're going to try this one. 12 times 3 2/5. Okay, copy this down and pause the video here for about 2 minutes and work this one out, and then we're going to check back in. Okay, so pause here and begin. Okay, so now I'm going to think about what I need to do. 12 times 3, well, that's 36. 12 times 2/5. Well, 12 times 2 is 24. 1 times 5 is 5. 24/5 is an improper fraction. 5 goes into 24 4 times with the remainder of 4/5. So that means I'm going to add 4 4/5 back to the 36, and you're going to end up with 40 4/5. How'd you do on that one? Did you get it? I bet you did. Okay, now for the remainder of the period, you're going to complete the following multiplying of fractions using the distributive property and the area model. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 examples that you need to complete and work out and solve. So you can work together if you need to, or you can work alone, but by the end of the period, you need to have these 6 examples down. What I want you to do, I did not write it here, but I'm going to say it clearly. Please listen. Take out a sheet of binder paper, because this work is going to be turned in at the end of the period. So do not do this in your math notebook. Do not do this in your math notebook. This needs to be on binder paper. Make sure you put your name at the top, because this is going to be collected. I want to see how you do in working these out using the distributive property and the area model. If you finish these 6 problems before the end of the period, I want you to, on the back of the paper, make 6 more examples of your own and work them out. Okay? If you finish the additional examples and these here, and there's still some time, take out your book for silent reading and read silently. Good luck, and I will see you on Wednesday.